Sound brings a film to life in a way, and this is especially true in fantasy films, in which there won't be any sound on the set to record for creatures or for space flight or for unusual environments. Those sounds will be created after the film takes place, and once those sounds are put in the soundtrack, suddenly the movie takes on quite a different meaning. My name is Ben Burt, and I created special sound effects for the Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I'm a sound designer, and my job is to imagine what the sounds in the movie are going to be, and then to create them. The term sound designer came about here in Northern California back in the first days of Star Wars, because the filmmakers up here recognized that they wanted someone on the production to be responsible for customizing the sound for a motion picture. And so my job, as well as other sound designers that emerged at that time, was to create special sounds that were designed specifically for the dramatic needs of a given motion picture. I became involved with Invasion of the Body Snatchers soon after Star Wars, because post-production on Star Wars was done in Northern California, and they asked me after the completion of Star Wars to stay on and to handle any other sound design work that would come up for future Lucasfilm productions. And so I had met Phil Kaufman because he was an acquaintance and colleague of George Lucas, and he came to me and they said they needed some special sounds for Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and could I spend some time creating some sounds for them. After Star Wars, I was in a mode in which I'd found the success of organic sound effects in a motion picture. By that, I mean taking real sounds in the real world, recording them, altering them maybe slightly, and then putting them in a movie soundtrack. So I took the same approach on Body Snatchers. I thought, well, okay, they need some otherworldly sounds of these alien pod entities coming from another world, and I think we talked right away that we wanted something that brought to mind the sense of birth. So I was set out on a path right away to record birth-like sounds. In the sequence where the pods grow and come to life in the garden, they're being born. And oddly enough, at that time, my wife was pregnant with our first child. One day I had a doctor's appointment to listen with a microphone to the sonogram, the sonic sounds of this unborn child, which we didn't know was a boy or a girl. So I took my tape recorders with me, thinking, well, there might be some good birth sounds here. And of course there was fantastic sounds. At that time, it was a new thing to listen to the child, developing in the womb. You could place a microphone against the mother and listen to the heartbeat. And you hear, depending on where you put the mic, you hear a funny, weird, almost kind of heartbeat sound. And it has a sense of wind, it has a sense of liquid and almost a squishiness to it. And I recorded those sounds. Some of the heartbeat was the real recordings from made on with the microphone on my wife's pregnant belly. And then I made some heartbeats on a synthesizer. You could program the synthesizer to make a thumping sound, and then you could tap a key and make what sounds like a heartbeat. Much in the way a heartbeat you hear yourself internally. The breathing sounds came from 3 different sources, as I recall. One of them was I just did strange breathing myself. As sound designers do, you close yourself in a room alone where nobody can see you and you perform different sounds. And of course, if you take a breathing sound recording, you can slow it down, and it has a peculiar quality if you do that. The second thing was I did some breathing through a scuba regulator. I'd done some originally for Darth Vader, and so I got some of that equipment back, and I did some different variations. And if you take a small microphone and put it in the tubing of an aqualung, the kind of apparatus you'd normally wear underwater, you can get an interesting quality of breathing because the air is passing through some valves and it's through a pipe, and so it just has a strange quality to it. My recollection is that I also used some breathing which I made from a hand bicycle pump, because you could squeeze and release the pump itself, and you got a little sort of a wheezing sound with it. I had done some experiments on Star Wars but didn't use it, and this sort of led me in this direction. But the sounds of a baby whimpering, or the kind of sounds it makes just before it cries, if you record those and slow them down, it's a very strange, weird sound.
Ben has a way of gathering elements and creating a sound that's complete.
Although Bonnie, I think, certainly enhanced this greatly, the other aspect of the pods coming to life are the husks and the leaves and the actual plant-like elements that are there on the screen.
One of the things my group did, we went to Chinatown and bought every vegetable we could find. We ripped apart in Foley and recorded every weird vegetable and fruit. I mean, we learned all about the sounds that food makes, and because when those things pop out and you just hear ripping and tearing and leaves dropping. Ben and I bought a lot of fruits and vegetables for the show. Stepped on them, threw them, squished them, ripped them.
So those sounds became really the foundation for those pods coming to life. Bonnie had the job, of course, of doing all the other sounds in the movie, you know, cars, vehicles, ambulances, you know, whatever it needed.
One of the effects that I'm really pleased with and proud of is the garbage truck sound. There's a running theme visually, I think it occurs 7 times in the film, where garbage trucks carry away, you know, when the pods have taken over the body, the shriveled body of the former person is put in a garbage truck. And I noticed, since I was often driving home in the middle of the night when the garbage trucks come out in San Francisco, that they have this whirring, this high-pitched whirring sound. So I went around with an auger and recorded lots of garbage trucks till I got the whir that I wanted, and then we mixed that. So it's a haunting sound that starts right at the beginning. The very first vehicle crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, right after the main title sequence, is a garbage truck coming into town. And then throughout the film, that garbage truck becomes weirder and weirder and weirder, as every sound effect does.
The film is pretty carefully blanketed by the proper sound effects. There are birds when there need to be, there's sounds of nature. It's the world as we know it. But as we move more and more toward the end, we begin to kill the birds on the soundtrack. We begin to take all the sounds of nature out, so that all that are left are sounds of sirens, sounds of machines, sounds of garbage trucks.
So finally you just hear garbage trucks everywhere, and this whirring is the disappearing people. There were certain target areas that I focused on, and Ben was my mentor at the time and created the most memorable sound, which of course is the pod scream.
I'm not sure where the idea came for the pod shriek, but of course it was a chilling idea because it gave a signature to a fully grown pod creature that was indisputable.
I knew we needed some sort of strange sound, something that was absolutely terrifying.
Philip Kaufman wanted something scary and sudden and very colorful to do it. I utilized what has become common since then, which is to use pigs for shrieks. because, you know, pigs have a high-pitched, you know, shrill cry. Because they're mammals, it sounds like a person almost, but it isn't. It's not a sound a person can do, but it's a sound you can believe a person can do. So armed with these great pig screams, that became the big basic backbone of the screams. But of course, in the movie, the characters inhale, and then there's this sort of long breath that, and the scream, of course, is quite sustained, more than the pig would do it. So I added to it some breath that I recorded myself. Just so, you know, you can kind of create the most wheezy, raspiest breath you can come up with and record that and blend it with the pig scream. Of course, the famous one is the very end of the film where Donald Sutherland is, you know, makes the final, you know, statement of horror in the movie.
When the film came out, Dolby at the time thought that Body Snatchers was their best soundtrack, and they, for many years, they may still play it as an example of what Dolby could do.
At the time, they were pioneering the technology of noise reduction, as well as how to split a stereo optical track so that it opened up on the sides and left the dialogue in the middle. So we were trying to open up the tracks and also be able to use surrounds.
For example, when Don Siegel is the cab driver and they're riding through the Broadway tunnel and the motorcycles come on both sides of them and the sound goes from forward in the screen. If you're seeing it in a theater, sort of swirls around you into the surrounds.
Sound is incredibly creepy and psychological. It is more psychological and emotional than picture.